The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And we're coming to you tonight around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, and on the X Zone TV channel, that is channel 54 on Simul TV. And to subscribe to Simul TV and the great channels that they have for you, visit www.simultv.com. Exonation, we're going to be talking about a book this hour. We're going to be speaking to the author, and he has a fascinating story to tell. The name of the book is Christ-Centered Healing Trauma, Healing a Broken Heart. Joining me now is Norm, and I hope I pronounce your family name right. WIELSCH? Welsh. Thank you very much for joining us, Norm. I've been looking forward to talking to you all day. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself, please, Norm.
Well, I grew up as an auto mechanic. Actually, I grew up in Port Coquitlam, Canada. And then my parents moved down here to the LA area. And now I grew up basically in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was a police officer at the age of about 24 after working on cars. And I had no clue where that would lead me. And it was a fun and good career, but it ended up not being too healthy for me emotionally and mentally.
Why did you want to become a police officer? And I'm asking you this because I'm a former member myself.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and your story resonated with me, very much so.
You know, I grew up in my father's business, like I said, and I loved cars, and I actually raced cars, but I knew it wasn't for me. So at an early age, I went ahead and took a ride along with the local police department, and I loved it. I felt that it was my calling.
Yeah.
So that's why I ended up selling the business and going into police work.
Were you a Christian before you entered the force?
No, I never believed in God, mostly because the things that I've seen, I couldn't justify believing in God when there's so many bad things were happening.
You know, that's something people don't see is the other side of the badge. And many police officers that I know, because of the types of trauma that they get to see, as well as other first responders, doctors, medics, EMT, firefighters, as much as Hollywood and TV shows like to build it up to be this glorified job, which it is, but what these people like yourself, myself, and other members who are first responders have to put up with on a daily basis. I don't think there's one TV show or one movie that has ever portrayed it to the fullest extent. Let's just take a look at 9/11. Everybody's running out. Police officers, paramedics, firefighters are running towards the danger. And now I understand you were diagnosed with PTSD.
Yes, about 12 years in. My dad was a military man, so I was taught at a very early age just to push down your emotions. You know, don't cry, don't exhibit any emotions at all. And I was real good at it. You know, one of my very first calls was an airplane crash into a shopping mall on 23rd of December, so just a couple days before Christmas, where the plane literally went through the ceiling and 50 yards away from where Santa was. And it was a horrific scene, and that was my entry into police work. But I was good at shoving it down. You know, I had a lot of calls of toddler deaths, drownings and vehicle accidents, horrific suicides.
Yeah.
But I was always able to push it down. I think that's a sign of a good officer, but of a bad human being, right? Not a bad human being, but it's not good for us to push these down. And pretty soon, after about 12 years, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and started having nightmares. And yes, I was diagnosed at that time with PTSD.
Yeah. It's a totally different world out there from the front seat of a cruiser, as well as the first responding that you do. I don't think any member of the force or any emergency responder ever forgets that first case that they attend. So once you were diagnosed with PTSD, what happened? Because I don't know about you, but when I was in the force, there was no counseling. There was nothing. I remember one of the worst times in my career was I was doing radar in front of a school zone. And I don't know about your department, but our department had squealers. That's a tape that comes out, and you go back to the station, and the OIC would check the number of infractions compared to your tickets.
No, I've never heard of that.
Oh yeah. So I had to be in front of the school zone. I believe it was from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. The tolerance was less than 5 miles an hour.
Oh wow. So
this I'm just getting ready to turn everything off and get on with my patrol, and the alarm goes off on the radar. Okay. Pull the guy over, get out of the car, pull him over. And he says, "Did I do something wrong, officer?" I said, "Yes, you were doing 34 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone in a school zone." He says, "You know what, officer? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. My wife and I are new to this neighborhood, and it makes me feel good knowing that you people are out there doing your job." So, you go back to the cruiser, you run them through, through the system. Guy's cleaner than a whistle. Got to give him a ticket. Get out of the car, give him the ticket. He says, "Thank you very much, officer." He shakes my hand. And he leaves. He's with his wife. Newlyweds, new to the neighborhood. I'm in the back. I go back to my car and I'm saying, "Oh, geez." So you write the information on the back of the ticket, just in case it goes to court. A few minutes later, this car comes tear-assing towards me. And she says, "Officer, you better get to that corner. Bad accident. I'm sure somebody's dead." And I'm saying, "Well, wait a minute. The only car that went that way was the car I stopped." I get to the corner. One hell of an accident. He was killed at the scene. His wife is quadriplegic. And the lady who hit him was drunk, a member of the special part of society. She got off scot-free. I had to go back to the station, and I'm saying, "Oh, this is nuts." And the chief comes in. He says, "What are you doing here?" I told him. He says, "Listen, if you can't take it, put your badge and your gun on the counter and go home and don't come back. If you want to stay, go out and give more tickets." And that was the old way of thinking.
Well, that's the way I grew up, definitely. Yeah. My very first fight was actually in a police academy. They teach only use as much force as necessary. So I'm chasing down this parolee at large in the middle of the night. I catch him. We wrestle, and I ended up getting a hold of him and arresting him. And I bring him back to the jail. I put him in the cell. And what happened was I had my knees were tore out of my pants. And my shirt was all dirty. And this old wily sergeant comes up, and he's looking at me up and down, shaking his head. He goes back into the cell, looks in the cell. Then he comes back out and he says, "I'm really disappointed in you. You look like this, and the guy in there has no broken bones whatsoever. If you ever do this again, you'll be walking a beat down the waterfront." In other words, beat the guy up, right?
Yeah.
And that's the old school way to do it. In the police academy, they had 3-hour block on PTSD. It wasn't really on PTSD. It was just job stress. Eat right, work out, and get your sleep. That was
we didn't even have that. We didn't even have that. And I don't know about you when you were in the force, but all we wore was our uniform shirt. We didn't wear bulletproof vests. We didn't wear flak jackets. I think, what do we have? 38s back then before we got Glocks.
Yeah.
The bullets used to bounce off the bad guys' windows.
Yeah, that was an option with us too. The first couple of years was no bad. Yeah. it was crazy, just crazy. But it's really got a lot better. But the problem is, just like you said, it's this police warrior culture, or in first responders in general, it's a warrior culture. Like you said, people run away, we go run in, and you can't appear weak, right? If I were to have gone to my superiors and say, hey, I last night I stuck a gun in my mouth and I really was contemplating suicide, that'd be it. I'd be done.
Yeah.
And my career would be over, and nobody else would ever work with me again. And this is why we have to stop the stigma of this, and that's why I'm trying to go out and talk about it, because not everyone is going to go as far as I went, because I kind of went off the deep end. But we need to get out the word that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah, I too have PTSD, so I know exactly how you feel, my friend. You and I have to take our first break, Norm. Thanks very much for coming on the show, and we'll be back on the other side of this break as the X Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. X Zone Nation, Norm Walsh is our special guest this hour. His website is Christ-centeredhealing.com. Before we went to the break, you said you went off the deep end. What happened?
Well, not only the PTSD, but in 1998, I was diagnosed with a neuromuscular disease that really took away all my feeling and all my strength in my hands and my feet. It's similar to it is neuropathy, so it's similar to the diabetic neuropathy, where you get these ulcers on the bottom of your feet. And it's complicated by a disease called Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, which atrophies the muscles in the extremities. So I was losing all my feeling and my strength in my hands and feet. Underwent about 30 surgeries in a 10-year period, and it was just devastating, because they were giving me opioids just right and left, which I'm not blaming the doctors, because they have a responsibility to stop the pain. But due to my poor coping mechanisms, I ended up abusing the pills in order to combat the emotions that I was feeling. So in other words, when I felt anxiety or stress, I would pop a couple of the Vicodin or Demerol, and I would feel better. So that was going on for about 10 years. And during that time, I was still working, and I ended up getting promoted. But now I didn't admit it at the time, but now looking back, I was basically a pill addict, a working pill addict. And I got promoted to commander, and I was in charge of a narcotic task force at that time.
Well, wait a sec, hold on. You were in charge of the narcotics, and you were, okay.
Yeah. It's hypocritical, right?
Well,
but I never drank alcohol. All my friends were drinking, and most of the guys I knew, they were drinking. So in my mind, it was like, well, wait a minute, these are prescription meds. It's nothing big. It's making me get through the day. We all, when we're addicted, we all make excuses and we all justify our actions. Yeah,
many nights were spent at the local pub after shift. So I understand. I understand, but it must have put you in a very compromising situation.
Well, nobody knew about it until a little bit later. And then, so I was dealing with both those things. And then finally, the last straw was I had a daughter that was about 24 at the time, and she ended up getting liver tumors.
Oh, my God.
It was a really poor diagnosis, and only UCLA Medical Center down in LA could do the surgery, and they gave her a 50% survival of the surgery chances. And then I just went off the deep end. I didn't care anymore. I didn't know it at the time, but now looking back, I basically was in a self-destructive mode. I was doing whatever I could. I was doing very, very, very dangerous things in work. I was putting myself in dangerous situations where I was almost hoping that maybe I would get shot and killed so I could go out the easy way, right? And then die a hero instead of dying from this disease or just dying from a bullet to my head for myself. And I ended up listening to a guy who I thought was a friend who wasn't. Again, this isn't his fault. I made these decisions, so I'm not blaming him, but I'm just telling you what happened. And he needed some money, and he ended up needing some drugs to sell to get this money. And I ended up stealing some drugs out of the evidence room to give to him. And to show you how bad of a drug dealer I was, the first drug deal, I was caught. So after 16 years of being a narcotics agent, my first drug deal, I was caught. But good thing. I mean, that was God working in my life, I believe.
What kind of a sentence did you get?
14 years.
My Lord.
You know, here in the States, we have a 10-year mandatory minimum for 28 grams of methamphetamine. So it ended up being a 14-year sentence. She gave me an extra 4 years just for my job, which I get and I understand. And it was worth it. If God came down right now and said that, hey, let's do a do-over and I'll make it so you don't have to go to prison, I wouldn't change a thing, because I learned so many things in prison about why people do the things they do, the difference between us and them, you know, because that's the police mentality is cops versus everybody else, you know.
Good guys versus bad guys.
Yeah, or not even bad guys. Everybody, even if you're a victim. I mean, I gave up friends because they had a DUI, you know, and I gave up friends because they smoked marijuana, and it's crazy. It was just dumb. Hey, I can't associate with this guy no more. And so I learned so many things, and I became a much better person, you know. And even though I love police work, I'm a better person now, and I enjoy myself. You know, I enjoy being who I am, and I'm comfortable with who I am, and I like my life, which I never did before. How's
your daughter?
Actually, God healed her. It's just amazing. It's
oh, that's fantastic.
I know we don't have the time, but we went through. We prayed for her, and the doctors said it was miraculous. They don't know how it happened, but the liver has clean tissue now, and she's 32 or 33 now, and no problems. So, you know, that's one of the reasons why I truly believe in God now, is He really moved in my life.
Let me ask you this before we talk some more about your book. What was it like for you as a former cop being in prison? Did these prisoners know who you were and what you did?
Well, at first, the first year, I was in a suicide cell all by myself, being in solitary confinement for 3 days. Every 3 days, they would let me out for 1 hour, and then that was it. So the first year was very, very difficult, but it gave me an opportunity to reflect, to read the Bible, study. So it wasn't all that bad, but it was rough. I wouldn't wish solitary confinement on my worst enemy. So then when they sent me to the federal prison in Fort Worth, Texas, there was a lot of cops there, but I lied. I said that I was a fireman, because everybody loves firemen. You know, they hate cops that love firemen. So the first year I lied, and then God put it on my heart and said, hey, you know, if you really want to make a difference, you know, you're going to have to tell the truth. So the people that I knew, I told, and of course, word got around. There was a couple confrontations, but never anything violent, but it had the potential to be. But I had learned by that point humility, and just to humble myself, and just to, because back in the old days, I would have fought, right? I would have stood up for myself and fought, but it's not worth it there. And so it was rough, but it was bearable.
When did you let God into your life?
Well, it was while I was out on bail. You know, I bailed out. I was stressed out to the max, as you can imagine. And my wife and I were just sitting there one night, and the phone rang, and it was a pastor from a church, and he was a friend of my dad's. He tried to talk me into coming to church, and I was kind of just blowing him off. You know, I didn't want to go to church. But then he asked if he could pray for me, and he prayed for me, and he prayed the sinner's prayer, and I had no clue what the sinner's prayer was. And he said, do you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And I said, yeah. You know, I didn't really know what I was saying. I just was kind of trying to get rid of him. I said, yeah. And then so we hung up. I went back, and I started feeling better, right? Like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And my wife had grown up Christian all her life, but she was afraid to talk to me about it because of my strong views. We started going to church. It was just amazing. I really didn't buy into it until my daughter was healed, but I felt good. I felt at church, even though these were a lot of addicts, a lot of criminals in there, tattoos everywhere. I mean, back then, if you had a bunch of tattoos, you were a criminal. Right now, even cops are all tatted up. But back then, it was like And it was amazing. It really was amazing. And so God healed my daughter. Then ended up going to prison. And I ended up learning, while I was in prison, I got my master's degree in theology and counseling. I went on to get my doctorate degree in Christian counseling. And while I was looking through the scriptures and doing a dissertation, matter of fact, the dissertation was the book, I learned the ways that God promotes healing, and it really parallels secular ways. And then before I got out, I got my certificate in drug and alcohol counseling. So right now I'm a drug and alcohol counselor and a certified chaplain.
Good for you, my friend. Good for you. Tell us about your book.
Well, the book is really about how God heals. I mean, I would have never thought God would heal. But once you go through the steps, you learn who God is and who he believes you are. It's freeing, right? It's truly freeing. Now, there's a lot of work you got to do. You got to look in and you got to look your responsibility for your trauma, because we all have our part in our traumas, and we got to ask for forgiveness, and we have to forgive those who injured us. So it's a lot of journaling and a lot of self examination. And I detail everything out in the book. It's a little bit long, but I go into Bible study, why you should believe that the Bible is real, why you should believe God truly heals. And then I go into all your emotions, why we have these emotions and how they negatively affect us, and go into prayer. And so it's an all-inclusive kind of book. Maybe it's more for a Christian counselor, but I think it's for everybody that has trauma or knows anybody with trauma.
Christ-centered healing trauma, healing a broken heart. How long did it take you to write it?
About 3 years, but I was in prison at the time, so it gave me something to do. So I wrote, and then I sent it out to a publisher before I got out, and they liked it. And when COVID hit, I actually had 3 more years to go. When COVID hit, they let me out. It was almost like a godsend, let me out 3 years early, and I was on home confinement, and I'm just completing the government's requirements now. And I'm blessed. I'm doing really good. I'm really happy that the way things came out. Now I'm still suffering a lot of guilt and shame from the things I did, because I was trusted to do a job, and I betrayed that trust, and I betrayed a lot of officers that are hardworking, honest guys that got a lot of scrutiny because of what I did. But personally, I'm a much better person now.
Sounds like you had 2 miracles that I can see. Number 1, the miracle of the curing of your daughter, and number 2, being released early. And what was it like when you were in prison? You found Christ. You've got this weight being taken off your shoulder, and the fog is lifting. And you realize that, hey, here I am. I'm on a mission. How did that make you feel?
Looking back, I just can't believe some of the things, the situations that I was put in. I mean, when I went to a minimum security prison, the chaplain there just basically gave me the keys to the chapel and said, hey, I just don't have time to come to minimum security. I'm in maximum security. Just run the church. So I ran the church. I did the sermons. We did classes. I counseled people. I mean, it was technically informally, but I counseled people. And I learned so much about what makes people tick, right? When you go to the police academy, they say, okay, this person possesses drugs or uses drugs. They're wrong. It's bad. You should be arrested.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to look at more of a bigger picture. If we really want to solve these problems, we got to look at the bigger picture and say, okay, why are these people using drugs? And now, after a couple of years of being a addiction counselor, I see that a lot of it, not everything, but a lot of it is trauma-based from childhood, and they're just the same reason why I am is trying to numb those emotions that I felt and not wanting to look into really what's bothering me. And I think that we'll never solve the drug situation until we really go to the social part of it. We need to look into that.
Yeah, I agree with you. We just don't ask the right questions. We don't hear the entire story. There seems at time in police work, there's no compassion.
That's right.
And it's a whole new different world out there once you're carrying that badge. My uncle was a sergeant, and when first time I put my badge on, he said, "No, don't forget, always treat the person on the other side of the badge as you would want to be treated."
Yeah.
And that was like, whoa, okay. You and I have to take a break, my friend. Please stand by. And Exo Nation, the name of the book is Christ-Centered Healing Trauma, Healing a Broken Heart. And Norm's website is Christ-Centeredhealing.com. More of this fascinating story when we return. Don't go away. Exo Nation, we're talking to Norm Welsh. He is the author of Christ-Centered Healing of Trauma, Healing a Broken Heart. His website is Christ-Centeredhealing.com. What kind of feedback are you getting now from those who know you and those who know what happened, with the arrest, the addiction, and the prison time?
Well, guys I worked with, they won't have anything to do with me. They just stay far away from me. I don't know if they're afraid that they will be thought of as a co-conspirator or what. I probably would have done the same thing back then and not having the epiphany I had, because like we said earlier, it's us against them. And now that I'm labeled a criminal, that there's no love. Now there are guys that have been through some stuff that have reached out to me and we talk and they said, yeah, I understand, thank God that when I was drinking, I never got a DUI crash and killed somebody, which could have easily been, so a lot of these guys that are shunning me are basically hypocrites because they're doing dangerous stuff too. And it's just, we're all on that fence, right? We just got to tip one way or the other, but there are a lot of good guys that are working out there. They're trying their best. It's just that this culture does not allow us to seek out help. And I think that needs to change. I heard it's slowly changing, but the guys that I have talked to that are still working, said it's still not. If you show any sign of weakness, they try to get rid of you.
But you're paying your debt to society. You're helping society in a manner that law enforcement can't.
Yeah.
As I see it, you're still serving and protecting.
I try to do that.
Yeah.
My whole goal is to be a first responder chaplain.
Yeah.
I believe that it's going to take a few more years for them to really trust me, because a lot of them will think it's a jailhouse, conversion, and I'm only doing this because, to get out early or to make myself look less. And that's not true, because I did confess up to everything that I did.
Right.
And I don't blame anybody but myself. But I understand the culture, and if it takes a little while, that's okay. But those that are non-first responders, like people in the church, people that have suffered other types of trauma that's outside of the first responder community, are being received real well, a lot better than I ever thought I would, because that guilt and shame is still there. I mean, when I go into a crowded place, I kind of put my head down and I kind of try to be inconspicuous because I'm afraid to be recognized. But I mean, that's 12 years ago and nobody should ever recognize you, but it still plays on your psyche, right? That
Sure.
guilt, shame. But I do get a lot of good response from people that are not in law enforcement.
If you don't mind, can we just talk about your daughter's healing?
Sure.
Yeah. So tell me the story. Your daughter was diagnosed with
So just before my arrest,
right.
she was diagnosed with these tumors on her liver.
Right.
And there was one tumor that was wrapped around an artery, and that was the one that was really dangerous. And when they told us that we had to send her down to UCLA and she might not survive the surgery, I just freaked out. And that's when I went that spiral, because so many things were hitting me at all times. It was my personal health, because then I was thinking that her issues were related to me because my DNA was flawed. You know, I was going through some serious illnesses and mental illness that I knew, but I didn't accept. So I blamed her illness on me, right? So I put all that weight on me. Then it was the pills, and it was the PTSD. So all this stuff was going on, and I just imploded. But what happened was that after we started going to church, all my kids were saved, and that was another huge blessing that happened from this all. You know, I have the guarantee that they're all going to heaven. So what happened was, it's really interesting. She was supposed to do a biopsy, and the Sunday before the biopsy, our pastor in mid sermon, I mean, just he stopped in the middle of the sermon and said, "I want to pray for Norm's daughter Jennifer," because by this time they knew who I was. I was going there long enough. He prayed for her with the whole congregation, and it was really moving. I mean, it was really moving. So we go to the biopsy. Biopsy is good. We go to the doctor's appointment a few weeks later, and the doctor says, "Hey, I need another scan." And so we did another, I think it was a CT scan. And when we came back there, he put both scans up, and one was clean, and the other one, the tumors are a light area on the liver comes out dark, and the light areas are the tumors, and one had no light areas. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't know what to say. I've never seen this before. The liver tissue is normal, and there's no more tumors. And then I got mad. I mean, I really freaked out because I thought it was an improper diagnosis, you know. And I started yelling at him. And he said, no, I have secondary opinions here from UCLA. And I looked through it. And that's when it hit me. That's when I truly believed that there was a God. It's when he healed her. And she hasn't had a problem since. I mean, there's no other explanation. I mean, you know, if you don't believe in God, you can just say it was a miracle, and that's fine. You know, I'm not trying to push God on anybody, but for me, I truly believe it was the healing from God. And I truly believe that God knew that in order for me to fully believe, I needed to have something big happen.
Yeah. Well, how can anybody say they believe in miracles if they don't believe in God?
I mean, like AA says, higher power, you know, and that's the hard part for me when I go into the addiction place is we have to say higher power. You know, our county won't allow us to talk about God.
Why not?
Because it's not a Christian place, and the county is paying for it.
Oh, brother.
So if the county pays for it, we got to keep God out of it, which I get, I understand. But I truly believe without some type of higher power, without some type of spirituality, that there is no healing, right? Because when we believe in a spiritual entity, and I'm going to call him the Christian God. Anybody can call him whatever they want.
On my show, my friend, you call him God.
All right, good. I didn't know for a fact, but even if it's just a higher power, if you believe something is greater than yourself, and then there's a reason for things that happened, then it takes the pressure off, and it takes the anxiety off, and it allows us to just go with the flow, because there's a reason why God allows things in our life, you know, and ultimately it's going to be for our good, even though it's going to be a painful thing. Like my thing, it was very painful for many years, 10, 15 years. It was terrible. But now I'm living the peace and joy that I should have been living back then. But I had to go through some pain in order to feel what being happy and at peace really means.
I love your story. Please don't take that the wrong way. You know, I'm a Christian. I'm proud to say that.
Good.
I believe in God. I'm proud to say that. And I don't think that anybody should doubt the power, because miracles are around us each and every day. Look at the smile on a child's face. Take a walk through the forest. Look at the sky. Look at the stars.
Yeah.
You know, what's there not to believe in? But that's just coming from a guy who talks to people about ghosts, hauntings, UFOs, Bigfoot, and everything else.
But you're right. But if you're like a person like me, where you grow up and you see a lot of Christians that are hypocrites, right? A lot of the Christian police officers I knew were cheating on their wives. They were drinking to excess and stuff. And then you see how children are victimized and how elderly people are victimized. And you go, well, how can there be a loving God? And it's tough to understand, but God has his ways. And my next book that's coming out is Why God Allows Pain and Suffering. And I think I'm going to try to explain that in there from the scriptures. But there's a plan and a purpose. There's a purpose to your pain. If you're an atheist, there is no purpose to your pain, right? Life is just a series of random events. Yeah. But if you're a Christian, you know that this thing going through my life right now, I may not like it, but it's teaching me something. So instead of praying away, like, God, take this from me, no, God, teach me what you want me to learn. Show me what you want me to learn from it, and how I can be a better person from it. And I think that's the key. But most of us don't do that, and that's how we end up in addictions. We try to numb our feelings. We try to cover those emotions. We try to just fill those holes with alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, whatever you want to call it. And it'll never make us happy, because that hole that we're trying to fill is God-shaped.
Norm, please stand by. We've got to take our final break for this hour. And X Zone Nation, our guest is Norm Welsh. His website, Christ-centeredhealing.com, and he's the author of Christ-Centered Healing Trauma, Healing a Broken Heart. We'll both be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Don't forget, you can watch some other great shows on the X Zone Broadcast Network by going to www.xzbn.net, including A Different Perspective with Kevin Randall. His website is kevinrandall.blogspot.com. And for Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. First of all, Norm, I want to thank you ever so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. And I wish you and your family nothing but the best. I guess you went from cop to warrior for Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, really. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. Nobody would ever believe, if you'd known me 15 years ago, that I would be preaching or I would be teaching anything about God, And I thank you for the opportunity to tell my story. Again, I'm not here to brag or to belittle my acts, but to show people that this slippery slope that we sometimes get on is very easily to fall into. And if we see our negative emotions that are really starting to take hold in our life and make us feel bad, that we got to seek out help, and if I could just touch one person, this whole thing would be worth it.
The pleasure is all ours to have you on the show tonight. And your story, I'm sure, is touching hearts around the world, opening up some eyes. And what would you like to share with the X Zone Nation tonight? What's your message? What's your heart telling you?
That there is hope, right? I thought hope was lost. This one night, I tried to commit suicide. I put a gun in my mouth, and I almost did it. It was, for the grace of God, I didn't do it. And I lost all hope because I felt I was going crazy. I felt that this was beating me, but it doesn't have to. As long as you talk to somebody, I mean, whether it be a trusted friend, your pastor, your wife, whoever, trust somebody and talk to somebody. And if you have absolutely nobody, call 911. Well, at least it's 911 down here, and
it's 911 up here.
Nice. And get into a doctor. There's no shame. There's no shame in even taking meds, antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds, to start that healing process. But the only way to truly heal is to do that self-evaluation and to forgiveness, to forgive those that have hurt you, because the resentment is just eat you up. But that's my main message. There's hope. And I pray that you seek it out and don't be afraid to seem weak, because it takes a much stronger person to admit that there's something going on than it does to just bury it and pretend everything's okay.
How's your family doing?
They're doing so great. They forgave me for everything that happened. I mean, they suffered a lot during this time. I was gone over 8.5 years, and they suffered. My wife, she's just an angel. She stayed with me because she knew who I really was, right?
Right.
she knew that wasn't me. That was that something changed me, and I just can't ask for a better family. I just love them all. I praise God that they're healthy and they're happy. I've got 7 grandkids now.
God bless you.
Just loving life.
As I said, Norm, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I appreciate this hour that I've spent with you. And the door is always open. So please, when you write your next book, or if you just want to drop by and say hi to an old friend and fellow guy who used to wear blue, let us know. We'll love to have you back on anytime.
That would be awesome. So same to you. If you ever need anything, just let me know.
All right, brother. God bless you. Take care of yourself. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like to get a copy of Norm's book, it's entitled Christ-Centered Healing Trauma, Healing a Broken Heart. And his website is christ-centeredhealing.com. Norm, take care of yourself. God bless you, my friend.
I love you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. My pleasure. And that's it for this hour, X-Zone Nation. Wow, what a story. You don't have to be ashamed to believe in God. You know that? I don't know why people kind of whisper, yeah, are you a Christian? Yeah, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I go to church. Yes, I believe. I celebrate Christmas. I celebrate Easter. I've seen miracles, both as a police officer and doing this very show. I've seen miracles because the main focus of this show is to touch one heart each and every night. And I believe that tonight, listening to Norm's interview, a lot of hearts were touched. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we'll be back on the top of the hour. Don't go away.